Picture the most elegant man in fashion history, standing before mirrors in his Avenue Marceau atelier, unable to bear his own reflection. By 2008, Yves Saint Laurent, who dressed the world's most beautiful women, told police he could no longer stand the sight of his own face. How does the man who defined beauty for a generation come to despise what he sees? How does someone who gave women power through clothing lose all power over himself? But here's what makes this even darker. That same year, Pierre Berger, his partner of 50 years, knew Yves was dying of brain cancer. Terminal. Months to live. And Berger decided not to tell him. Let him die thinking he was temporarily sick, not permanently finished. The man who revolutionized how we dress spent his final days not knowing these were his final days. Fashion loves to tell stories about tortured genius, the artist who suffers for beauty, the visionary destroyed by vision. But what if that's backwards? What if the destruction came first? What if everything beautiful Yves Saint Laurent created, every tuxedo that freed a woman, every dress that turned bodies into art, emerged because he was already broken? And what if the fashion industry didn't just witness his destruction but required it? Oran, Algeria, 1936. Picture a French colonial villa where a boy named Yves Mathieu Saint Laurent sits sketching dresses for his mother and sisters. He's rail-thin, feminine, obviously gay in a world that punishes difference. The other boys at school have a word for him. Several words, actually. None of them kind. So he disappears into those sketches, creates women who could walk anywhere, be anything. While his classmates play soldiers in the Algerian sun, Yves is designing armor of a different kind. Gowns that could deflect stares, suits that could command respect. Fashion as escape route from a reality that doesn't want you. His mother's Vogue magazines become scripture, each page a window to somewhere else. Paris, real fashion. A place where being different might mean something other than being wrong. He memorizes every silhouette, every seam, practices signing his sketches with flourishes that will one day be worth fortunes. Then comes 1953. 17 years old, Yves enters the International Wool Secretariat competition. Think about that, a gay colonial kid from Africa competing against trained Europeans. He wins. Not just wins, beats Karl Lagerfeld. The next year, he wins again. The fashion establishment can't ignore him anymore. Michel de Brunhoff, editor of French Vogue, sees the sketches and sends a telegram to Paris. Christian Dior needs to see this boy, immediately. Within weeks, Yves is on a boat to France, leaving behind the villa, the bullies, the boy who didn't fit, heading toward the only world that might want exactly what he is. Dior takes one look at the sketches and hires him on the spot, not as an intern, not as an apprentice, as his assistant. The most powerful man in fashion looks at this awkward teenager from Algeria and sees the future. In my lifetime, Dior tells friends, there will be two great couturiers, Christian Dior and Yves Saint Laurent. For 3 years, Yves shadows the master, learns not just how to cut and drape, but how to be Dior. The elegance, the authority, the way to make women feel like their best possible selves. He's 21 years old, still homesick, still fragile, when Dior dies of a sudden heart attack in October 1957. The House of Dior is in chaos. Their genius is dead. Christmas orders are due. The spring collection is half finished. And then someone remembers what Dior said about two great couturiers. They name Yves Mathieu Saint Laurent, age 21, head designer of the most important fashion house in the world. January 1958, the Trapeze collection. Yves is first as Dior. The fashion press is ready to destroy him. Who is this child? This nobody from nowhere? Then the models walk out in narrow shoulders and flared skirts, and the room goes silent. Not disappointed silent, reverent silent. By the end of the show, they're calling it the most beautiful collection since Chanel. The boy from Oran hasn't just saved Dior. He's redefined it. But saving fashion houses doesn't exempt you from military service. Not in 1960, not when Algeria is exploding into war and France needs bodies. The draft notice arrives like a verdict. Yves Saint Laurent, couture's crown prince, must report for duty. His friends try to get him exempted. Surely France won't waste its fashion genius in barracks. But the military doesn't care about hemlines. September 1960, Yves reports to the Val de Grace military hospital for basic training. 20 days. That's how long he lasts. 20 days of hazing, of being called fairy and worse, of the same torment from Oran but now with uniforms and authority. The other recruits know who he is, the famous designer, the fragile artist. They know exactly how to break him, and they do. Day 20, Yves collapses. Full nervous breakdown. They carry him to the psychiatric ward where military doctors have a solution for boys who break this way. Electric shock therapy. Voltage applied to temples. The treatment meant to burn the weakness out. While Yves convulses on a hospital bed, Marcel Boussac, who owns Dior, makes a calculation. The papers are reporting the breakdown. Clients are asking questions. The boy genius has become a liability. Without visiting, without waiting, Boussac fires him, replaces him with Marc Bohan, sends a letter to the psychiatric ward informing Yves Saint Laurent he no longer works for Dior. Imagine receiving that letter. You're 24 years old. You saved their house, and while electricity courses through your brain in a military hospital, they erase you. The betrayal is so complete, it becomes liberation. Yves will later say the electric shocks changed him forever, that his depressions, his later addictions, his inability to find peace, all of it started in those 20 days. The boy who entered Val de Grace believing in institutions left understanding that institutions exist to destroy people like him. He sues Dior for wrongful termination, wins, takes the settlement money, and does something that shouldn't be possible. He opens his own house. With Pierre Berger, an industrialist who'd fallen in love with both Yves and his talent, he rents space at 30 bis Rue Spontini. January 1962, the first Yves Saint Laurent collection debuts. The fashion press comes expecting revenge drama. Instead, they get peacoats over white pants. Rigorous technique meeting youthful rebellion. The reviews are ecstatic. The boy from nowhere, the one Dior discarded, has just rendered Dior irrelevant. Freedom from Dior means freedom to revolutionize. And Yves, brain still burning from those electric shocks, revolutionizes everything. The Mondrian dresses come first. 1965. He takes Piet Mondrian's geometric paintings and turns them into wearable art. Simple wool jersey, black lines, primary colors. Except they're not simple at all. Each dress is engineered so precisely that the lines align perfectly with the body's movement. Fashion critics don't know what to do. Is it art or clothing? The answer is yes. The dresses are so popular, they revive interest in Mondrian himself. Museums start displaying the paintings next to the dresses. The border between culture and couture dissolves. But Mondrian is just the warm-up. 1966 brings the earthquake. Le smoking. A tuxedo for women. Not a feminine interpretation of menswear, an actual tuxedo. The same sharp shoulders and satin lapels men wear to own rooms, now cut for female bodies. The fashion establishment is horrified. Women in men's clothing? It's unseemly, unnatural. Some restaurants refuse to seat women wearing loose smoking. But Yves understands something they don't. He's not putting women in men's clothes. He's giving women men's power, the authority of the suit, the don't with me of formal wear. Bianca Jagger wears one, so does Catherine Deneuve. Betty Catrou, one of Yves's muses, practically lives in them. Within 5 years, every woman who wants to be taken seriously owns a version. The tuxedo becomes female armor. Yves has weaponized elegance. Then comes the betrayal of his own class. September 1966. Yves does something no couture house has ever done. He opens a ready-to-wear boutique, Rive Gauche, clothes that real women can buy off the rack. The same aesthetic genius, but affordable, democratic. The couture world treats it like treason. How dare he make fashion accessible? Doesn't he understand that exclusivity is the point? But Yves grew up excluded. He knows what it feels like to press your face against the glass. Rive Gauche is his revenge on every door that was closed to him. By 1968, he's unstoppable. Safari jackets that make women look like elegant hunters, thigh-high boots that turn legs into weapons, transparent blouses that dare you to be scandalized, each collection more audacious than the last. Fashion editors run out of superlatives, but here's what they don't write about: the all-night sketching sessions fueled by cocaine, the champagne that becomes necessary to face mornings, the pills to sleep, the pills to wake, the pills to feel nothing at all. By the time Yves is revolutionizing fashion, he's already dependent on chemistry to function. Friends notice him disappearing during fittings, coming back with dilated pupils and manic energy. He lectures others about marijuana being a disgrace while snorting lines in studio bathrooms. The same precision he applies to hemlines, he applies to self-medication. Pierre Bergé watches it all with calculating eyes. He loves Yves. Genuinely, desperately loves him. But he also loves what Yves represents: the business, the empire, the transformation of genius into commodity. They create what Bergé calls their Berlin Wall: creativity on one side, commerce on the other. Yves will never see a balance sheet. Bergé will never touch a sketch. This separation is supposed to protect the art from money's corruption. Instead, it protects the money from art's chaos. Because by 1975, the chaos is consuming everything. Yves can barely make it through fittings. He shows up to the wrong studios, forgets which photographer booked him. The man who created precision in clothing can't maintain precision in living. Models find him passed out in sample rooms. Seamstresses cover for him when clients visit. The fashion shows become exercises in damage control. Bergé posts assistants at every exit to catch Yves if he tries to flee. They have doctors on standby with sedatives. The press sees the magnificent collections. They don't see Yves backstage, shaking so badly he can't hold scissors. 1976, the personal relationship ends. Yves and Pierre stop being lovers but remain business partners. Yves moves out but not on. He starts haunting nightclubs. Lisette in Paris, Studio 54 in New York. Dancing until dawn with people whose names he won't remember, taking whatever they're offering, trying to feel something other than the weight of being Yves Saint Laurent. The work continues because the work is all he has. 1977 brings Opium, a perfume so successful it funds the entire house for years. The campaigns show women in various states of ecstasy. No one asks what Yves knows about opium. No one wants to know. He starts lying to the press, claims to eat 3 kilos of meat daily, says his grandmother was an Irish actress, invents heritage that doesn't exist. Anything to be someone other than the broken boy from Oran who made beautiful things from his breaking. The 1980s arrive like a reckoning. Fashion is becoming corporate. Numbers matter more than beauty. Yves, who can barely remember his own collections from the cocaine damage, has to compete with younger designers who aren't trying to die. He develops a ritual. Before each show, he locks himself in his apartment for days. No food, no sleep. Just sketching and substances until the collection appears like a hallucination. Then he emerges, gives Bergé the designs, and collapses. The atelier translates his fever dreams into clothes while he recovers in various clinics. 1983, the Metropolitan Museum honors him with a retrospective, the first living designer to receive one. He stands among his creations, decades of revolution hanging on mannequins, and can't remember making half of them. The drugs have eaten his memories. He smiles for cameras while his hands shake in his pockets. By 1989, the company goes public. Yves Saint Laurent on the stock exchange. The boy who sketched dresses in Algeria is now a ticker symbol. Bergé orchestrates it all, turning rebellion into dividends. The Berlin Wall holds. Yves sees none of the paperwork, signs what Bergé tells him to sign. 1993 brings the first sale. Elf Sanofi, a pharmaceutical giant, buys the house for $633 million. There's an irony in a drug company owning Yves Saint Laurent that no one discusses. Yves stays on as creative director, but everyone knows he's a ghost haunting his own name. The shows become painful to watch. Yves can barely walk the runway. 1998, he needs physical support to take his bow. The audience applauds while assistants hold him upright. The press calls it triumph. It's actually an autopsy. 1999, Gucci buys the company for $1 billion. Tom Ford will take over ready to wear. Yves retains haute couture, but it's meaningless. He can't work anymore, can't even pretend. The sketches come out as scribbles. The visions won't translate. January 2002. Yves announces his retirement. The final show is a retrospective, 40 years of revolution on one runway. Le Smoking, Mondrian, Safari, everything that changed everything. He takes his bow to a standing ovation that lasts 17 minutes. No one knows he's so high he won't remember any of it. Retirement doesn't bring peace. It brings erasure. He stops leaving his apartment, stops answering calls. When he does venture out, paparazzi photograph him looking confused, overweight, nothing like the elegant figure who defined elegance. 2008 starts with hospitalizations. His body is failing in every direction. Heart, liver, brain. Berger manages it all, consulting doctors, arranging treatments. Then comes the diagnosis no one expected: brain cancer. Advanced, terminal. Berger makes a decision. He doesn't tell Yves, convinces the doctors not to tell him. This man who built an empire on truth and design will die surrounded by lies about his own body. Berger will later say it was kindness, letting Yves have hope. But hope for what? A future that doesn't exist? June 1st, 2008. Yves dies in his Paris apartment. The official cause is brain cancer. But looking at his life, the cancer feels like punctuation. The real cause of death was decades of being Yves Saint Laurent, of carrying revolution in a body that couldn't bear the weight. They hold a Catholic funeral at Saint Roch Church. President Sarkozy attends. So does Carla Bruni, now France's First Lady, who once walked Yves's runways. Catherine Deneuve, Farah Pahlavi, everyone who matters in fashion. They celebrate the genius while carefully not mentioning the destruction. But the final erasure is still coming. 2012, Hedi Slimane takes over as creative director and drops Yves from the brand name. It's now just Saint Laurent. The boy from Oran who gave fashion his full name watches from the grave as they delete him from it. His ashes were scattered in the Majorelle Garden in Marrakesh, the Moroccan retreat he bought with Berger in 1980. Among the cacti and pools, the blue walls and desert light. As far from Paris as he could get while still being Yves Saint Laurent. They erected a memorial there. Tourists come to take photos, but they're not really looking for Yves. They're looking for the myth. The genius who revolutionized fashion, not the boy who was broken before he began, not the man who paid for every innovation with pieces of himself. The fashion world still uses his innovations. Every power suit owes him, every gender-fluid collection, every time fashion meets art. His vocabulary became the language everyone speaks, but languages outlive their inventors. That's the point. Walk into any Saint Laurent boutique today. You won't find his picture, won't see his full name. The sales associates, young and beautiful, might not even know who Yves was. They'll tell you about the new creative director's vision, about this season's direction, about everything except the ghost in the machine, because that's fashion's final cruelty. It doesn't just consume its geniuses, it digests them so completely that even their bones disappear. Yves Saint Laurent gave fashion 40 years of revolution. Fashion gave him back erasure. He created tomorrow, and tomorrow forgot him. Maybe that's why he couldn't look at his reflection near the end. Not because of what he'd become, but because of what was becoming invisible. The boy from Oran who just wanted to make beautiful things, who did make beautiful things, who destroyed himself making beautiful things, who was destroyed making beautiful things. The difference matters. One version makes him complicit. The other makes him fashion's most elegant victim. The truth, like his ashes scattered in that Moroccan garden, is probably somewhere between. Carried on the wind, impossible to gather, beautiful and gone.